Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and this week I'm talking to Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum, who is a board-certified internist and expert in the fields of chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, sleep, and pain. He's authored several best-selling books, one of which is called Beat Sugar Addiction Now. And I can't wait for you to hear our chat together. And just before we have our chat, I'd like to tell you about a few free resources I have for you to start living your healthier life by cutting sugar. First, you can go to my website, aftersugarclub.com, and download my 5 tips for getting rid of sugar cravings, especially if you're an intermittent faster and you're finding that sugar and processed carbs are getting in the way and making you hungry or making you overeat in your window. Go to aftersugarclub.com and download my 5 tips there. You can also get lots of other free resources on my website at aftersugarclub.com, including videos about what to eat that doesn't include added sugars, where to find real whole foods at the grocery store, and also about probiotic fermented foods and drinks and how magical they are for your gut health. Plus, you can get lots of free tips and inspiration on the Life After Sugar Facebook page and my TikTok page, and come and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel and my Instagram page at My Life After Sugar. Can't wait to see you there. All right, let's get back to my chat with Dr. Teitelbaum. All right, so I'm here with Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum, who is based in Hawaii. It's lovely to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about your background as a medical doctor and also specifically with sugar?
Okay. My background is in internal medicine, and when I was in medical school, I came down with a nasty viral infection that basically triggered chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. I was paying my own way through medical school, so I couldn't afford a place to live anymore. I was homeless, sleeping in parks. I had to drop out of school. And the professors had no idea. I had all these sugar cravings, the fatigue, the brain fog, you had the achiness, all the different kind of things. And what I had was the same thing that now is being called long COVID. It's basically a post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome. But the sugar cravings from low adrenal and candida, both of which I had in full bloom, are major parts of chronic fatigue syndrome and post-viral. But again, you can have it just in day-to-day life. So those of you who just have day-to-day sugar cravings, we'll go through the 4 main things that are triggering that, how to make the cravings go away. If you have insulin resistance, I'll give you natural ways to restore insulin sensitivity so your blood pressure goes down, your cholesterol goes back down, your diabetes goes down if you have those. But also it helps with weight loss if you're not having insulin resistance. Insulin resistance packs on the pounds. So in my own experience, when I was homeless, is as if the universe put a holistic homeless medical school sign on my park bench. And all these doctors and naturopaths and herbalists, I didn't even know naturopaths existed, came by, and they all taught me bits and pieces. And I'm a science geek. And what I found is that what I read in the scientific literature does not match what they're taught in medical school. What they're taught in medical school is basically slick advertising from the drug companies masquerading as science. But anything that's low cost, cheap, or natural, not just will we not be taught it, there'll be a resistance if it competes with medications. And they're all good people, no bad people out there, but it's just important to know where the data is coming from.
Yes. And is that just in the United States, or would you say it's in most Western countries?
It's in most Western countries because the influence of the pharmaceutical industry on academia, on the NIH, on places like that. These are all places where they get so much money from the drug industry or seeking to go work in the drug industry after, that they create the culture, and that culture permeates the Western countries. On the other hand, in the Eastern world, China, places where they don't have the big money that the Western world has and can't afford the pharmaceuticals, they are much more open to energy medicine, natural healing. So the West is biochemistry and the East is biophysics.
Okay, okay. So but you went to medical school, didn't you?
Yep. And I
When you were at
graduated with honors in medicine and the whole thing after I came back, after I learned how to recover myself. Yes.
okay, yeah, so you got your health back. You went to medical school. Where was that?
At Ohio State.
Okay,
Ohio State had one of the most progressive courses in terms of pain management and even including natural medicine in the country.
okay. And
Mm.
can I ask around what year that was?
It was 1975 that I found myself homeless for the year. So it was 1972 to 1977.
Gotcha. Okay, and
50 years that I've been in medicine now. Yes.
yeah, that's almost all my life. Can I ask, when you were in medical school as a young doctor or future doctor, and they taught you, I would imagine, a lot about human biology, did they teach you about how that, like the link between food and human biology?
Yes. What they taught is that if you're eating a good, well-rounded, whole, a good, well-rounded diet and have no other conditions, you don't have to consider food. You don't have to consider nutritional deficiencies. You don't have to waste your time learning about nutrition. That was
Okay,
it. Now you know almost everything we were taught in medical school about nutrition.
all right, packed
That's it.
into about 30 seconds. Um,
Mhm.
and so, but what if you weren't? Well, first of all, what did they consider to be a rounded whole diet or whatever
Oh,
it was?
they ignored that. There was a slick phrase that was given the impression that for everybody is this not an issue. This is nonsense. Don't waste your time with it. Read about the drugs
Yes. Okay. So,
and surgery.
right, and drugs and surgery are what medicine is all about, is really the
That's what
message.
that's where the money is. That's how you can most help people. This other stuff is quackery. You need to protect your patients from this quackery. Anything that competes with drug and medical product uh, profits. And again, these are all good people.
Yeah.
I've
Oh,
never
yeah.
met anybody in the pharmaceutical industry who wasn't the love. But this is the party line, and they have controlled the flow of information, not just through physicians, but
Was
through
there
the
an al
media.
yeah. Was
The,
there an
the
alternative for you as a doctor, a future doctor? Like, did you feel that this didn't fit with your belief system, or did you say, well, it's the only option for me if I want to be a doctor?
Well, I started in just very traditionally. I always, since I was 8 years old, wanted to help heal people. I want to take people out of pain. I'm pretty empathic, and when they're in pain, I would feel the pain, and I wanted to help them get rid of the pain. Um, but so, but when I got back from my trip being homeless, so to speak, and I had learned about low adrenal, and I had learned about candida, and all these things that a medical school didn't exist. Um, it was an eye opener for me because they said, "Sorry, we can't figure out what's wrong with you. You must be crazy." That was the impression. Um, but I'm like I say, I'm a science geek. My nickname was the ghost of the phantom in med school because 2, 3 in the morning, I'd be in the medical library and they'd see me ghosting through stacks, pulling research journals off, from 100 years ago, 50 years ago, or 20 years ago now. And what the research was showing was that all these natural things worked. So I just tried it and they help people. And so what I needed to reconcile was that pharmaceuticals is one tool, but it's just one tool in the toolkit.
Right, right. And preventative medicine, or not, what's called natural with a tone of voice that's slightly like in the medical field, they're like, oh, natural medicine, like it's not worth anything. But especially preventative, that was something that you found was valuable, right?
I found it priceless. It was something that what I found is that people who we could not get better, the standard medicine were routinely getting better. Their conditions were going away. And I was getting people flying in from all over the country to see me in my small town practice in internal medicine. But preventive medicine, is the art of living healthfully. It's the art of making good choices. And for that, what you need is information. And again, sugar, if you look at the main licensing body for nutritionists in the United States, they're basically, and am I looking at that, their main support are places like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and chocolate companies and stuff like that. And they are the ones who are teaching the nutritionists. In fact, there are laws passed in many states that anybody not trained by this organization, which is made up by fast food companies, predominantly, and there are other contributors like broccoli or whatever, but mostly fast food companies, anybody not trained by them is not allowed to talk about nutrition in some states.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yes, it
Yes.
really is. And as a non-nutritionist who talks about food,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the craziest thing because we're just, like we're regular consumers. I think we should be able to talk about whatever we want. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
not to give like, professional recommendations, but to talk about whatever we like,
Well, as
including
long
sugar.
as you're not guiding people, you can talk about whatever you want. But
Right.
it's a funny thing. It's the we have this concept that we're free countries. And then, I'd go to Europe and say that, and I'd just hear people fall over laughing. And I said, "Did you ever try to start a business? Ever try to say anything that challenges industry?" It's like, you know. So anyway, but that's all good because we can talk about it. We will talk about it. And it's not hard to have your cake and eat it too. We will teach you how to enjoy your sugar pleasures, but to do so healthfully.
Okay, well, let's get into the subject of cravings that you were mentioning right at the beginning. And you were saying that there's 4 pillars or 4 approaches, right, for cravings. Can you explain that a little bit, please?
Yes, so there's four main things that drive sugar cravings, and you can tell which one you have. The first one is that you're fatigued and you're reaching for sugar as an energy loan shark. So you're reaching for that soda, you're reaching for that candy bar, and that's low energy. And the thing is that when I say energy for sugar, it's an energy loan shark. It takes more energy than it gives. So you feel better for a half hour to an hour, and then you crash and burn and crave more sugar, and off you go to the races. So the antidote and solution for that is healthy energy. There are three things: a good multivitamin that's high in B vitamins and magnesium, massively helps energy. I like one called Energy Revitalization System. It's a powder. There's another one, if you don't like powders, it's called Clinical Essentials. So that's a very good baseline for people. Um, the You can use ribose, which ironically is a sugar and tastes like sugar, but it doesn't feed the yeast. It doesn't cause the problems of regular sugar.
Can you tell
Um,
us what that is?
Ribose is the backbone of our DNA and energy production. If you eat food, it has to be turned into ATP, which is a form of energy, adenosine triphosphate, which is made up of ribose and B vitamins. That's what makes up our energy. So you can't eat a hamburger and turn it into energy without converting it to one of these energy chemicals that's made of ribose. When people get exhausted, they become ribose deficient. And in our study, we found that giving it by mouth in people with severe fatigue increased energy 61% on average. So you can get something called Smart Energy System, which is very good at increasing energy. Um, what I have on my desk, if I'm tired, is something called HRG 80 red ginseng. Get the chewable tablets. I just chew one half of a tablet or one tablet here and there. So there's all these ways to get healthy energy. Um, and then you're not going to crave the sugar. You have the energy, then you have the sugar because you want something sweet. So type 1 is low energy. and you just restore energy production, what we
And
talked about.
can I just ask, sorry, can I just ask if you're having low energy and you want to actually eat foods rather than take supplements or pills, which foods are the equivalent of the supplements that you just mentioned?
It's difficult in the Western diet because half of the vitamins and minerals are lost in food processing. And that includes the B vitamins. Magnesium, the average diet before processing has 600 milligrams a day, only 245 milligrams left after processing. So what you want to do is go with whole foods, whole grains. The proteins will help for one piece of it. But the green leafy vegetables, nuts, things like that that are going to be high in the B vitamins and magnesium, almonds would be a good source. So eat whole foods, vegetables, things along those lines. And again, sugar are empty calories. 18% of our diet is sugar. That means we've lost 18% of the vitamins and minerals before we even get out of the starting gate.
Right.
So eat foods that are nutrient dense, things that are unprocessed whole foods.
Right, which is my message here as well, which means that as far as I can understand it, if you're eating a processed diet, which is unfortunately the normal diet, but not for people listening to this podcast, if you're eating a diet with more processed products, then you might need supplementation. But if you're actually eating real whole foods, then you don't need to supplement them. Is that right?
Well, maybe it takes hours a day to really shop and prepare properly. If you're
Not for
getting
me though.
okay, then you're an expert. So again, it's an individual thing. It's less necessary if you're getting a whole diet. It's just in the United States that's so rare that even people who try hard, the diet this is so unless they really get a pretty much a totally unprocessed diet or less than 10% of foods processed,
Yeah.
they're going to be pushing nutritional deficiencies. So
Okay.
again, there's no right or wrong in this. For me, I prefer a good multivitamin with B vitamins and magnesium, and with the other nutrients too, just because our diet is a standard American diet. SAD is the acronym. It's just
Yeah. It's
sad.
very ironic that the acronym is SAD. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So that is one source of cravings. Can you explain the other three?
Okay, so number two would be irritable when hungry, called hangry. You get these feed me now or I'll kill you. And if anybody gets between you and a Snickers bar, it's like getting between a mother bear and her cub. It's like, dead. So that's low adrenal. And that's fairly easy to treat. Sugar causes sugar to drop, which is ironically, and then that triggers adrenal alarm. You make cortisol to bring sugar back up, and that's the stress hormone, and that's low when people get exhausted from the stress of modern life. Their stress handler gland gets exhausted too, and it has trouble keeping up. So irritability when hungry. Um, there's nice simple things, vitamin B5, vitamin C, uh, the glandulars, a cup of licorice tea each morning. Licorice candy doesn't do anything. But if you don't have high blood pressure, if you have high blood pressure, you want to keep an eye on it. But otherwise, but you're not going to usually have high blood pressure and low adrenal. You can, but less common. But a cup of licorice tea, I like a supplement mix called Adrenaplex, which smooths that right out. But start with a cup of licorice tea. It's naturally sweet, and it will raise your stress hormone levels and make it easier. But again, I do like the multivitamins. I think that they're helpful. The B5 specifically at about 25 to 100 milligrams a day helps the adrenal function.
I wanted to take a quick break to let you know that now there are two ways that you can actually apply all the theory you hear on this podcast into your life. It's not easy to cut sugar when you're all on your own and you feel like the odd one out or like nobody understands. I get it because I've been there, and I want to make that path easier for you, which is why I'm inviting you to join the After Sugar Club so that you can get the step-by-step guidance you need so that it doesn't feel like a huge mountain that you have to climb. In fact, in the After Sugar Club community, you'll actually find that we have fun. Did I just say that we have fun cutting sugar? Yep, that's what sets the After Sugar Club apart. It's a freeing, joyful place to get all the support you need to live your healthier lifestyle without needing or missing sugar anymore. And now you can choose your path to a healthier lifestyle, either in the regular membership on a monthly basis where you get group support and 24/7 access to all the resources in the After Sugar Club for self-study, plus our community, plus our twice-monthly check-in calls. Or you can choose the After Sugar Club Premium membership for more personal attention and customized guidance from me, Netta, guidance that's tailored to your specific needs with 12 extra personalized accountability calls that we'll schedule according to your availability and time zone so that you can attend each call. The Premium membership is a more hands-on experience where you're guided through structured exercises and assignments with my personal feedback. In fact, you'll be following a proven framework that I've created that will allow you to get to true freedom from sugar. With just 12 extra calls with me, I'll be helping you make small but powerful mindset shifts to transform your relationship with sugar and comfort foods. And you'll benefit from my gentle, respectful approach that respects you and your personality and needs. The After Sugar Club is always open for you. Join us today. Go to aftersugarclub.com and click on the big green button, Join the Club. Okay, all right. What's next on the...
One other thing too. Much of the stress of modern life is because when I was a kid, the media mantra, if your advertisers wanted to sell something, the mantra was sex sells. You wanted to sell a product, a car, beers, you put a pretty woman and a handsome guy next to it, and you sell the product. Now the mantra is fear and divisiveness sells. So they basically figure if they can get you scared to death and hating everybody, or at least half the population, you will watch and they'll get you clue and they'll sell more advertising. So there's this Tai Chi move that's very good for the adrenal stress problems. When you're watching the news, because it's a fiction on both sides. I don't care. I'm in the news. For some reason, they like me. And if I'm quoted correctly 10% of the time, accurately, that's a lot.
Yes.
It's a fiction meant to scare you to death and make you hate everybody. So do this move. Take a deep breath. Center, reach your arms out to the side, grab the remote control and hit off. And turn to something that feels good. That's not making you grind your teeth, like watching Netta, for example.
Yes, absolutely. Listen to a podcast. Yes, that'll lower your stress.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, if you're in marriage counseling or divorce lawyer, there's a good chance it's because one of you has low blood sugar.
Huh.
And just smoothing it out with the things we talked about. My first relationship was funny. My former wife got low blood sugar and just would claw my eyes out, and I just couldn't be there anymore. But I have low blood sugar too, so it's true. I said that, so I had to learn on myself to do that. But again, it's not hard to take care of. Again, the adrenoplex is what I find very helpful, but a couple of tea and increase your salt intake. Your salt restrict when you have low adrenal, you will crash and burn.
Yes, that's quite rare to hear a doctor say increase your salt intake. Good for you.
Most of what the medical profession says about salt is a myth that's not supported by the science.
Well, thank you for saying that. I think people will listen to you saying it more than me repeating it. But good. All right, what's next on the list?
So number 3, do you have what I call the cravings, the happy Twinkie hunter? You're not irritable, you're not clawing anybody's eyes out, but you're looking through the cabinet, something sweet would sure be nice. So the happy Twinkie hunter. Along with, do you have nasal congestion or sinusitis? Do you have irritable bowel syndrome, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation? Enough gas you could fill a weather balloon, but it doesn't have much smell to it. These are candida or yeast overgrowth. We're familiar that we talk about when women have yeast infections, but the bigger area where it's a problem is in the sinuses and in the gut. And for that, you'll find the sugar cravings. Yeast grow by fermenting sugar. They put out a chemical that says, feed us. And
Yeah.
off we go on the sugar binge. And then they have a massive party and reproduce and make billions of baby yeasties.
Yeah.
So what do? A good probiotic is helpful. They're natural herbal antifungals. So I like berberine Met X, but you want the 500 milligram one. That's not the super high absorption one. There's grapefruit seed extract, but it has to be the liquid one. It's preservative in the liquid that actually kills yeast, not the grapefruit seed extract. And then there's caprylic acid, or Capralex is a good one. There's a whole host of natural antifungals. There's somebody that I'm treating, I will use a medication, diflucan or fluconazole, for 6 to 8 weeks. And for the sinusitis, compounding pharmacies can make what's called a sinusitis nose spray. That, along with the diflucan, will clear the chronic sinusitis. For most of you who have chronic sinusitis, what they do is they keep giving you antibiotics. And as any woman who has yeast infections know, antibiotics make yeast infections worse. That's
Yeah.
why the sinusitis becomes chronic.
Can I ask, as a medical doctor, but with knowledge, as I know of what's called alternative medicine, let's say natural, do you know much about fermented foods and drinks, lacto
Well,
fermented?
absolutely. I mean, because the fermented foods and the kefir, and if you're there's a whole foundations and movements, the Price Pottinger Foundation, the whole thing that really does brilliant work. And the for the candida, thank you, Alex. I should have mentioned that first. Kefir,
Yeah.
a good kefir is very, very helpful.
I make mine. I make all my fermented foods and drinks, and it doesn't take long. It's passive time, they ferment without me getting involved. I just, it takes 10 seconds to prep, but it's just more delicious, I think, to eat milk kefir, or drink my kombucha, or eat my kimchi or my sauerkraut, than to take a capsule, and about 20 times cheaper, quite frankly.
Yeah, and much tastier. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That should have been the first thing mentioned.
All right. What's next on the list?
So 4 is women who are getting around menopause in their mid-40s. They're getting premenopausal, and they're getting anxious and depressed because their hormones are fluctuating. They're starting to get low progesterone and estrogen, and that triggers anxiety and depression. So they reach for sugar because in the past, when they were depressed and anxious, the sugar helped, not realizing that biochemistry is now changing and it actually makes it worse. So treating depression, um, that's a problem that causes sugar cravings as well. And again, I'll use a bioidentical hormone replacement. You may want to use little soybean pods, the edamame. As a nice natural way to raise a soybean. The wild yam or Diascorea, but get a good brand. Most of them out there are not wild. They don't have the active component in it. So get a good Diascorea or wild yam. But again, the edamame, a handful a day, is the traditional Japanese way of dealing with premenopause.
Right. Yes. Yes. I mean, I'm 52 and a half, and I haven't had any symptoms yet. I don't know whether it's because I don't eat sugar, or because I added fermented foods and drinks to my diet, or because I'm just lucky.
It's probably because you take care of yourself. So your systems are lasting longer before going through the planned obsolescence that nature builds into us.
Very probably. Yes, hopefully. I just want to take a quick break to tell you about the After Sugar Club, which is where you can discover the real sweetness in your life. If you want to get rid of cravings without the need for willpower, and lose your extra weight, your aches and pains, and brain fog, and make your intermittent fasting lifestyle easy and natural, then the After Sugar Club is where you get guidance from me to let go of sugar, so that you can get more energy and confidence and feel healthier in just 12 weeks. If you're busy in the day, but as soon as you sit down in the evening, you want to snack mindlessly, or if you eat when you're happy or sad or whatever emotions you're feeling, and deep down you know that cutting sugar is the answer, but, well, the fact is you love sugar, even though you know that you have an unhealthy relationship with it, then I can help you ditch sugar for good. How? I'll show you how in the After Sugar Club, where you'll get access to all the resources that I've created to go step by step to letting go of sugar in a sustainable way, without suffering and without feeling restricted. There's no diet mentality in the After Sugar Club. You'll also get access to our twice monthly check-in calls on Zoom, as well as our lovely friendly community to get support, encouragement, and accountability. Come check out everything that's included in the After Sugar Club at aftersugarclub.com and click on the green button, Join the Club. Okay, so these are the four, not the only four sources of cravings, but certainly things that we can do something about.
The four major ones.
Yes, the four major ones. And you were talking about insulin resistance, bringing down insulin resistance. Could you explain what that means?
Well, what happens, insulin, when we eat sugar, the sugar goes to our bloodstreams, and then the cells are like little furnaces, energy furnaces, and sugar is like the fuel, the coal that goes in the furnaces. But to get into the cells, to get burned for fuel, you need a key called insulin to unlock the cell furnace, and then the sugar gets taken in, burned for energy. And that's a nice, healthy process. Gives you a lot of energy and it works well. Normally, we don't get sugar from the diet, just minimal amounts. The body turns our food into sugar, which then gets turned into, and go into furnaces to be turned into ATP, that energy molecule we mentioned. But what happens when instead of getting a pound of sugar a year in our raspberries and blueberries and stuff, we're getting 140 pounds of sugar per person hidden in our food and food processing to mask that the food is not real food. It's garbage junk. But if you load it full of sugar, people won't notice. You wonder why anything else that you process, if I take cotton and I spin it and then I turn it into a shirt, each step increases the value. In food processing, each step lowers the cost.
That's a great analogy.
Because there's no food left in the food by the time it gets to people.
Yes, so, I don't even grace it with the word food. I call them, processed products.
Yeah, I call them crap. They're junk. So anyway, you take a bunch of sugar, 140 pounds per person, and suddenly your bloodstream is flowing with that, and your cells have to defend themselves and say, no, this is going to kill us. This is unhealthy. We are not going to let that sugar into our cellular furnaces. And the key goes, and the cell has made that key not work. So the insulin is a key. And now your cells are resistant. They're saying, no, we can't handle more sugar coming in. So you get insulin resistance, but now there's all this sugar floating through your bloodstream. And the insulin says, well, we can't get into the cells. The insulin acts like a traffic policeman who then says, okay, all the sugar, go to fat stores right around your tummy.
And that's how come we get this belly. Yeah.
Sugar belly, yes.
Yeah, sugar belly. Yes, which is like the spare tire that I used to have, which melted away when I stopped eating sugar. I couldn't believe it.
Exactly. And it also causes high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and prediabetes, diabetes. So, the major diseases that kill people, the most common cause of death is blood vessel disease, heart attack, stroke. And probably the main cause of that, or one of the major causes, is metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, whatever name you want to give it, which goes back to sugar.
Yeah.
Excess sugar in the diet.
Yeah, I believe you. Definitely. Okay. And then, so insulin sensitivity is that when only a bit of sugar will make the body react.
When the insulin, the low blood sugar is when your body has trouble that when your body, the furnaces are taking all the sugar in and burning it for fuel, and the blood sugar level goes down, your body is going to make the stress hormone cortisol to keep it from going too low. Because when it goes low, you get like claws and irritable and hangry. So the low blood sugar and insulin sensitivity is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Low blood sugar is adrenal fatigue,
Okay.
adrenal stress
And
hormone fatigue.
what's considered low for blood sugar?
Well, what constitutes low is what causes symptoms and makes you feel irritable. That could be
Okay.
65 in some people, especially if you're having a cup of coffee, like I have my morning cup of coffee, and the caffeine will cause the blood sugar symptoms up earlier, at maybe 60, 65 even, or otherwise it might have to drop to 45, but that varies from person to person. So what causes you to get hangry,
Mm-hmm.
irritable when hungry, moody, that's how I would define low blood sugar as opposed to a specific number.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, to go with how you feel as much as a number. Right. Okay. Wonderful. And you were talking about having your cake and eating it. Such a great
Mm-hmm.
expression. And so can I know a bit about your outlook for that, please?
Yeah, I have a sweet tooth. I love my sweet tooth. I mean, this coffee here tastes like an ice cream sundae, but has no sugar in it. There's stevias. Stevia Select makes a nice tasting line of different flavored stevias. You want to be a little careful with stevia because the leaf itself is a natural product, but if it's unfiltered, it's going to be a bit bitter. Now, about it's like genetics, like you know how about half of you squeeze the toothpaste tube in the middle, half leave the cap on, half leave it off, and it's almost genetic. Like you can curl your tongue or you can't. Um, and whether you like the taste of stevia is, I think, a genetic thing. Some people love it, and some are no.
Hmm.
So if you like it, then you have a free pass to make foods as sweet as you want using the stevia with all the different flavors. There's sodas like Zevia, which are all natural and stevia sweetened. You can get them in the States in the Safeways, stuff like that. I don't know if up in Canada if you have the Zevia
Yes,
sodas.
yes, we have that here.
Yeah, healthy. Enjoy it. Because sugars are sodas are the main thing. It's 3/4 teaspoon of sugar per ounce. Um, so you have a liter, that's, oh God, I don't even calculate that. That's massive amounts of sugar. An average can of soda has 12 spoons of sugar in the United States. Um, the You'll find there are other sweeteners, like for chocolate. Chocolate is a health food. Chocolate is associated a little bit of chocolate each day with a 45% lower risk of heart attack death,
Yeah,
where the statin medicines are maybe 2 to 10%. So chocolate's a health food, but you have sugar-free chocolates that are maltitol sweetened. They're
yes.
laxative is the only thing.
Yes, yes, yes. You've got to be careful with those. I must admit, I've never tasted or wanted any of those things you just mentioned.
And that's
Because
okay.
yeah, because when I stopped eating sugar and I stopped eating sweeteners and flour, I just lost the taste for sweet tastes. Like I was the
Mhm.
world's number one sweet tooth, just like you. And then I found that it tasted horrible once I'd sort of had this period of time without sweet tastes.
Yeah.
And now it's like a little bit of sweetness. It either tastes awful or will overwhelm my taste buds to the point where I can't have much of it.
Well, I found that my craving has gone away and I love sweets. So
Yeah.
but I don't crave them. And I can go ahead and have for chocolates like Lily's or the Good Chocolate are two companies that make very good ones. You want to avoid fruit juices. An orange will have 2 teaspoons of sugar, but 16 ounces of orange juice will have 12 teaspoons of sugar. You can
That's
eat the whole
difficult for
fruit.
people to get their heads around because an orange we've always been told that an orange, and it's a whole food, it's a
It
natural
is.
food. How
It
come
is.
it's got sugar?
Well, it's nothing because it has a natural sugar packed with the fiber and all the rest. It's good for you. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
But you're not going to sit down and eat 6 oranges at a sitting. If you want to, go ahead. I'll laugh sit there and watch and laugh at you. But the orange juice, you're just taking all the sugar out without the rest of the good stuff. So avoid the juices. If you want juices, have the vegetable juices, have the tomato juices, have the low sugar juices. Again, carrot juice is kind of in between. So if you want to sweeten
okay.
your juices a bit in moderation. Um, So you get rid of those big things, and you'll find that there's so many other natural sweeteners like allulose, different things, where you can go ahead. These don't cause the problems, and you can have your sweet tooth and
Yeah.
no
I
problem.
mean, they don't cause metabolic problems, although they're not, some of these things are not super for gut health. But for some people, myself included, in fact, for thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, any taste of sweetness, even if it's a so-called safe sweetener, will trigger behavior that we would rather not have.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The even the natural sweeteners, even the artificial sweeteners, even I bet the stevias and the other things, we're built so that our body wants warning when sugar is coming, so it can crank out insulin and do the things. You will find, I bet, that for even the stevia, anything sweet tasting, the taste buds, the sweet taste buds trigger, hey, sugar's coming, and there's an immediate insulin release. So
Yeah,
for those of you who get that immediate insulin release, and then it triggers low blood sugar and it triggers behavior you don't like,
right.
then anything sweet may not be good for you.
Yeah,
Where the biggest bulk of the insulin release comes later as that sugar keeps releasing, keeps releasing, keeps releasing the insulin. So yes, for some people, here's the thing: when people ask, for example, what's the best diet in the world for everybody, and I just go like, what works for you, and it's going to be totally different from one person to the next. There's no one diet for everybody. What leaves you feeling the best and leaves you feeling healthy days later? In other words, so what feels good now and what works, those two
yeah.
things, that's the diet for you. And
Fantastic.
it's not going to be the same for everybody, and even for most people it'll change in different phases of their life.
Yeah, yes, totally agree with you. Yes, definitely. You've written several books,
10.
of which the complete guide, yeah, 10, goodness me, the complete guide to beating sugar addiction. Um,
Mhm.
and can you tell us a little bit about what made you write that book?
I wanted people, I would tell people just come off sugar. And I realized that if I saw them in a dark parking lot anytime in the 10 days I told them to come off sugar and their headlights were aimed right at me, I better duck because people went through hell for the 10 days,
Yeah.
trying to go through sugar withdrawal. Sugar's addictive. And then over time in my practice, I realized that if I got rid of the sugar addiction drivers, then there was no withdrawal. It was easy to stop the sugar. So I write when I have something to say, and that was something worth saying for people. Also, for those of you with fatigue or pain or fibromyalgia, what I would recommend is my book, From Fatigued to Fantastic. It will talk about all of this. It's more updated than the Beat Sugar Addiction now. So it talks about all these things, but more in the context of fatigue and pain and fibromyalgia.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'll put the links with the show notes with this episode. And Dr. Jacob, thank you so much for meeting with me.
And that has been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you.
Aloha and be well, everybody.
Aloha. Oh, what a great chat with Dr. Teitelbaum, who's such an inspiring doctor, in my opinion. And I'm honoured that he agreed to be on this podcast, especially as he's been interviewed on Good Morning America and Oprah, and now he's talking to us on this podcast. And of course, as with most of my guests, we don't have the exact same outlook about sugar and sweeteners and, well, life in general. And that is the beauty of this podcast. In my humble opinion, there's all kinds of people reducing or cutting sugar in all kinds of ways, and none of them are right or wrong. They're all part of life after sugar. So if this is your first time listening to this podcast, I hope you're enjoying it and I hope it's inspiring you. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that it appears magically in your podcast player every Sunday. And if you've listened to several episodes before and you haven't yet left a review, could I ask you to scroll down, please, and rate the podcast and leave a lovely review to tell me how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. Has it inspired you to reduce sugar? Has it made you think about sugar a little bit differently? Let me know. The more reviews and ratings this podcast gets, the more people can discover it and the more people we can help. Thank you for listening. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.